Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce boarded a Thursday morning flight from Kansas City to Los Angeles, planning to combine his off-season Nike commitments and her label meetings. And it was emphasized that they treated the trip like a chance to enjoy rare downtime together as they settled into first class with easy banter about how travel used to feel harder. And observers noted that a cheerful attendant named Jessica fussed over them with eager service and light small talk before the plane pushed back. Then the narration said the calm was broken by raised voices from economy, where a seat dispute grew heated. And it was reported that a firm female voice ordered an elderly passenger to move to a middle seat so two younger men could sit by the window, which prompted the older man to protest softly that he had booked the window and still held the boarding pass. And it was relayed that derisive remarks followed, including a sneer that older people should not fly and a dismissive jab about war stories when the man revealed he had served in Vietnam, while Taylor and Travis were described as startled and offended by the tone, with Travis tightening visibly as he listened. And sources recounted that Jessica returned to first class calling the ruckus minor, joking that the man had a military tattoo, speculating unkindly that he might be unstable or senile, and suggesting the younger men were being reasonable, which the pair reportedly met with alarmed looks before Travis gave Taylor a pointed nod, stood, and headed back without a word. And witnesses stated he advanced to row 23, where he found the veteran squeezed into the middle while the two young men occupied the window and aisle, their bravado fading as they realized who towered over them. And it was said Travis addressed the veteran respectfully, introduced himself without stating his name, and expressed deep regard for the man's service, before offering, in firm and measured tones, to exchange seats so the veteran could ride up front in dignity. And observers recall the elder identifying himself as Frank Rodriguez, a three-tour Vietnam veteran from the 1st Infantry Division, who initially balked at the generosity, but was told gently that the swap was not optional because the wrong needed correcting, while Jessica looked puzzled and tried to intervene until Travis stated plainly that they were rectifying a mistake. And the narration added a brief prompt that viewers were asked to reflect on witnessing disrespect toward elders and consider what they would do. Then it was described that Frank rose shakily, thanked Travis, and headed toward first class as Travis took the cramped middle position, causing the swagger of the two 20-somethings to evaporate. And it was related that they stammered apologies and admitted fandom, asked for a selfie, and were rebuffed by a cool suggestion that they practice respect before seeking photos. And at the same time it was said Taylor welcomed Frank up front, shifted to sit beside him, and introduced herself warmly, while insisting that what had just happened was only basic decency owed to a sacrifice. Then, as the plane climbed, Frank was reported to have shared how he had been drafted at 19 in 1969, had volunteered to return twice because he would not leave his friends, and had spent decades afterward wrestling with feeling forgotten, including moments when he contemplated removing the tattoo that had once symbolized pride. And witnesses said Taylor countered with steady conviction that his service would always matter and that the tattoo represented devotion to something larger than self, a reflection that brought tears to Frank's eyes as he mentioned his late wife's similar reassurance and admitted he rarely heard such words anymore. And the account detailed that Taylor listened as Frank spoke about a long marriage, post-war years as a mechanic, and persistent loneliness, explaining he was finally visiting his daughter after 2 years apart despite travel feeling hostile to older people, which he said often meant being treated as if he were in the way. While back in row 23 the narrative said Travis questioned the young men, named Brad and Connor, about whether respect depended on a uniform, pressing them to acknowledge that the window seat stunt for Instagram clout had shoved aside the dignity of a 73-year-old, and it was reported that their embarrassment deepened as he urged them to consider that every elder is someone's loved one with a lifetime of experiences, and that the freedoms they use so casually had been secured by people like Frank. And it was conveyed that Travis kept the conversation focused on empathy, consequences, and gratitude rather than anger. And by touchdown the two younger passengers had offered genuine apologies and promised better conduct. While in first class Frank was said to have grown calmer as the flight progressed, finding solace in simple kindness and conversation. And upon arrival at LAX, it was reported that Frank disembarked among the first with restored poise and told Travis that the gesture had returned something he feared was gone, namely the reassurance that people still remembered the meaning of service. Then as luggage rolled past, the trio reportedly walked together, and Frank shared more of his life, decades at the shop, raising 2 children after his wife's passing from cancer, and quiet hours volunteering with veteran groups. And it was suggested that Taylor and Travis exchanged a look, already thinking about how to make his visibility permanent, and the story stated they later helped introduce Frank to event organizers and schools where he began telling his story and urging respect for veterans beyond holidays, and it was highlighted that they connected him with peers battling isolation, building a small network that could answer loneliness with regular contact, calls, and shared projects, and the report added that Frank told audiences the flight had changed his life not merely because of a better seat, but because 2 people named the injustice and acted, giving him courage to speak so others would know their service still mattered. And it was mentioned that Brad and Connor reached out afterward asking to volunteer as contrition, discovering that respect is more than polite words. It is the recognition of inherent worth in each person. And the narrative emphasized that Frank eventually mentored younger veterans transitioning to civilian life, offering practical advice and an empathetic ear, while also saying that Taylor and Travis had not only given him comfort for a few hours, but had returned his voice and sense of purpose. And the account noted that every time the 2 celebrities traveled afterward, they remembered how quickly a small stand could reset a room's moral compass, reminding them that true first-class treatment meant honoring the dignity of every traveler. And a brief mid-story prompt reportedly encouraged viewers to subscribe if the turnaround surprised them, since more unsung moments would be shared. And the chronology then returned to the onboard exchanges, describing how Jessica, whose early flippancy had shocked first class, avoided eye contact later in the flight as the cabin absorbed the new tone. And it was said that several passengers quietly thanked Frank while he sipped water, and one elderly woman squeezed his hand, while Taylor asked about the music he liked, and he answered with old soul and road songs from the 70s, and the account stated she promised to make him a playlist and send it through his daughter. And it noted that Frank grinned and said he had not owned good headphones in years, but he would borrow his grandson's. And then it was related that the captain's landing announcement drew a hush as people looked toward row 23, where Travis had turned a lesson into calm conversation, and after the wheels touched down, Brad reportedly offered to carry an older man's bag 2 rows up as a small step toward change, and the report claimed that simple gestures like that began to ripple through the aisle, and it was stated that once off the plane, Frank paused to thank Taylor for listening rather than rushing, telling her that being heard was rarer than a free upgrade, and she was said to have replied that his voice deserved a crowd, not just a seat. Then it was described that in the weeks after, invitations arrived for Frank to address a high school assembly, a municipal luncheon, and a veterans resource fair, and that Taylor and Travis used their networks quietly, never announcing the help, while Frank practiced his remarks with sticky notes on his kitchen table. And the account remarked that his first talk opened with a simple message about seeing people, not stereotypes, followed by stories of loyalty, fear, and the relief of making it home. And it was said he ended by asking students to call their grandparents that night and to thank a veteran before the week was out. And a short subscribe queue was placed then, urging viewers to follow for more quiet turnarounds. And the narrative continued that the young men from the flight showed up at a weekend service day carrying crates of donated essentials, that they listened more than they spoke, loaded boxes into trunks, and afterwards asked Frank how to keep showing up without making it about themselves. And it was reported that he told them to do the unglamorous tasks and to stick around after the photo ops. Then the story recounted that months later Frank's daughter messaged Taylor a photo of her father speaking to a crowded gym with a banner thanking him for his service, and that the caption said he had not stopped smiling in days. And it was conveyed that Taylor forwarded the picture to Travis with a brief note that this was the best kind of victory, the kind that set more than one person free, and the timeline noted that the airline eventually sent a formal apology to Frank for the seat incident after several passengers wrote to customer service describing the attendant's remarks. And it was said that the company announced refresher training on age and veteran sensitivity for its crews, while Jessica reportedly requested to meet Frank to apologize personally. And the narrative shared that he accepted and told her calmly that everyone has off days, but that words carry weight at altitude, then offered his hand, and it was described that she apologized again, and he replied that moving forward mattered more than moving seats. And the account explained that Frank later kept a small card in his wallet listing 3 reminders: speak up kindly, carry yourself with pride, and notice who needs a seat. And it was said that he showed that card to a group of 8th graders during a school talk.